It like went through all of my memories, and some of the memories it like showed me. It's kind of weird. It's not sequential. It's not really in an order. It all happened at the same time. You think of like a flashback. It's happening when you see it on like a movie. It's like different images like in a line, but these were all at the same time. And I was seeing lives that I'd never lived, but I believe they were my own and things like that. I wasn't only seeing them, I was living them instantly and having feelings and emotions and all those things for each different life. This ball of light kind of said, this isn't you. None of this is you. None of these memories are you.
The following video does not glorify drug use, but instead it intends to educate people and create awareness leading to harm reduction by discouraging the abuse of drugs, and maybe even harm elimination by discouraging drug use altogether. This video shows some of the effects psychedelic substances can have on the mind while also highlighting what causes those specific effects or outcomes. However, with that being said, these are random people. Please don't make decisions based on what they say without your own due diligence, and also take note that these substances affect everyone differently, especially those with pre-existing mental conditions.
And so yeah, come to about October this year, mushroom season, and I took DMT again. Me and my friend had collected some Liberty caps in the day with the intention of doing DMT in the evening. So yeah, there was three of us, but there was only two of us really taking the DMT. This is a different friend now, and it was like he'd never taken it before. He'd taken mushrooms, we'd done mushrooms and stuff together, and he'd never taken DMT, but he was really interested in ayahuasca and stuff like that. And he'd planned stuff like he wanted to go to the Amazon and to do the ayahuasca stuff. So he was very interested. And when we were out during the day, I was like, "Do you want to take? Because I'm going to take this. I'm going to take the amount that I know to be a breakthrough dose." And he was like, "Yeah, I'm just going to go for it. Fuck it." And then I was like, "Okay, I'm not gonna argue with that. If that's what you want to do, go for it." So he took his hit first. So the thing is with the DMT, like the first time I took it, there was no way I could take another hit without someone helping me. My friend took it first. He like lay back on the same sofa in my place. And it's important to note that it's actually evening at this point. And again, just with a reference to my personal state of mind at the time, I'd recently just been through another breakup. Not very good with the ladies. It never ends well. Anyway, so yeah, so like the week before, I'd split up with an ex and weren't really. We were still kind of talking, but whatever. And so that was the state I was in, and I just felt like I just fuck it. I'm going to do a high dose DMT, and I'm just going to go for the breakthrough this time. So the way we administered it is I sat next to my friend while he lay on my couch. He held the pipe close to his lips, and then I held the pipe close to the bowl. So and I had the lighter. So it was just a case of as soon as I was just kind of instructed in what to do, as soon as you see the smoke come up, you inhale it. So I lit it, inhale, hold it for as long as you can, and then I put like my finger over the top of the bowl so the smoke wouldn't escape. Hold it for 10 seconds and then take your next hit. So we did that. And he did his thing. He had his trip and he came back and he was like, "That's amazing." In fact, we're still talking about these two experiences like to this week. We still talk about it, and he's like, "I'm going to do it again, but this is too much for me to process." So yeah, I believe this is a breakthrough dose. I believe I met the entities or some sort of entity anyway. I've actually I believe I've met entities on LSD and mushrooms as well, but not like this. Not like I did on the DMT, that's for sure. So yeah, so he administered the DMT the same way I administered it for him. He was holding the pipe for me and lighting it, and saying inhale, exhale, counting down, hold it in, and count down. And yeah, after the first hit, I could feel it came on, and second, third, and he said there was enough in the bowl for a fourth, but I got through the third hit and I couldn't take any more. And then, unlike the first time, there was a lot more of a kind of it came on instantly, and it was a more of a like a full launch kind of feeling, this full like getting propelled, this kind of hyperspace thing. And I'm trying to really remember it because the thing is with the DMT, it's really fleeting. It's like a dream. Yeah, so there was a definite launch feeling, and I was taking off, and I could see a lot of things like passing me by really quickly. Like I was like in hyperspace, but if you imagine like what you see in like Star Wars or whatever when they go into hyperspace, there's all those lines and stuff. But it was more like stuff flying past me, like shapes and just weird stuff flying past me, and I couldn't really tell what it was. It was happening so fast. It was happening insanely fast, and I tried to open my eyes because as soon as I took the third hit, I closed my eyes and kind of lay back and was like, I'm ready for it. I wasn't scared like the first time. There was no like shit that hit me really fast. I kind of knew it was going to hit me really fast this time. So I tried to open my eyes to try and see the codes again. I was like, maybe I could see those codes again. And I opened my eyes, and the room was absolutely insane. I was pretty much seeing in the room with my eyes open what I was seeing with my eyes closed. So the room was like moving really fast and like kind of melting around me. And there was this kind of feeling or this voice or something kind of like pulled me back. I tried to look at my arms and it's like, no, you don't want that. And it like pulled me back in and I closed my eyes again. And then I just got flung into space is probably the best way to describe it. And then all of a sudden I stopped and it was as if I like just hit something or something and I just stopped and I was propelled in like complete darkness. So I was just there. I was completely out of my body. Oh, there is another part. During this part where I'm flying through this whatever's hyperspace, I saw a perception of myself, and it was myself as like perhaps like a line drawing or a drawing or something like that. I wasn't flesh or anything. I wasn't human. And I saw it. I saw that part of myself getting ripped up, like just torn to bits, um, like whatever it. I just saw like parts of me getting pulled to bits and like my eyes getting ripped out and stuff like that. But the important thing to understand, what I wasn't a flesh being or something. It wasn't blood and guts or anything. It was more like just like lines and shit getting pulled apart, but I perceived that as myself. And then I stopped in this night sky, basically this amazing beautiful night sky, and it was completely black at first, but then I started to see the best way to describe would be stars. So I started to see these stars appearing, and instead of like dots and stuff, they were like drawing shapes, and it was almost digital. That's the best way to describe how it looked. It was like quite digital looking, and if you know like an etch a sketch, so these stars were like drawing these shapes like an etch a sketch, so it was dead angular and stuff like that, and then as they draw, like the lines in the back would just fade away, and then as the shape or whatever was completed, it would just like kind of disappear like fireworks kind of fading out into a night sky. The firework kind of, they're bright at first and then they fade back. So they were doing that. I really can't describe these shapes, and they were absolutely beautiful, like kind of mandalic, but really really linear kind of things. And and it's important to mention as well, the colors were different this time. Like the first time I took it, it was like lots of reds, golds, yellows, greens, like bright colors. And this time it was like kind of neons, like purples and blues, and there's a lot of black, and there's like a lot of white that's being drawn. So they'd get drawn out, these shapes that'd be like white and stuff like that, and then fade back into nothing. And then I was kind of there suspended. I didn't feel like I was falling or anything. And at this point, I wasn't aware of my body. I was literally just probably my brain or whatever, or my inner soul or whatever floating through space. Yeah, no kind of physical form or anything. And at first I was like, oh, this is it. This is all I'm getting, and just it's beautiful. I'm not that disappointed, but I was just like, oh, okay, I guess I haven't done it. But at that point, when I had this thought, something above me just appeared, and it was like this white light, basically like a white ball, and it seemed to like open the sky, open all these shapes, and like open the sky and pull it apart like a curtain. And so it didn't have hands or fingers or anything. It didn't really have a form. It had like these ribbons like kind of came out of it, and they were just pure light basically, and they kind of came down and like grabbed me. And I felt like a presence, and it was it was a female presence. It was definitely a woman's kind of energy, is probably the best way I could describe it, or not a woman's, a female, like a maternal kind of energy from it. It just kind of held me in these ribbons, which I'm going to call their fingers. It kind of held me like that, and it kind of said, "You're not ready," which is something that's really stuck with me since. It's like, you're not ready. We can't show you you're not ready. Basically, you can't come any further. You're not ready. That whole idea. So it kind of held me like that, and then all of a sudden there was this kind of instantaneous thing where it kind of went through my mind. It like went through all of my memories, and some of the memories it like showed me. It's kind of weird. It's not sequential. It's not really in an order. It all happened at the same time. You think of like a flashback. It's happening when you see it on like a movie. It's like different images like in a line, but these were all at the same time. And I was seeing lives that I'd never lived, but I believe they were my own and things like that. I wasn't only seeing them, I was living them instantly and having feelings and emotions and all those things for each different life. which was fucking weird. And there's one particular one that I remember that I was like some Egyptian prince, which was quite mad because it kind of relates to the other thing. And then there was one where I was like this African hunter, and all of this kind of stuff like was presented in front of me, and the being or whatever it was, this ball of light kind of said, "This isn't you. None of this is you. None of these memories are you." And then in a second, after having all of that kind of information thrown at me, they just erased it all, and then there's just nothing apart from this glowing, that ball that had been hurtled through, that thing that I was, that I'd been thrown through space as. That's all I was for a moment, being held in these like white light ribbons, and it essentially says, "This is all you are." This is the message I got anyway. This is how I interpret it, and that's all I was basically. I was only this little ball of light, but the thing is, it wasn't just the light or just this kind of visual idea of just this ball of light. It was like there's a lot of like emotions and feelings in that ball. There's like everything, and it's like this is the reality. This is all that matters. That's the kind of message I got. And then it kind of said, you can't stay. We can't take you any further. And yeah, then it started to fade off again. I had the same effect. I was back in the room as if I was tripping on acid again. Yeah, so that was the most profound DMT trip. I mean, that stayed with me a lot, and that kind of that made me write what I wrote recently. That specific experience, because yeah, some of my other trips kind of have those same morals somewhere along the line. It's like, so what I somehow believe. Obviously, I don't want to be some guy or whatever that says, these are real experiences. Obviously, I've taken fucking really, really powerful psychedelic, but I believe that the all that was it was showing like my true self, and like the kind of materialistic things in the world, the things that I require, I need to survive, my memories, stuff like that. They don't really matter. The emotions, the feelings that I have that are generated by other people or by people that I know, negative and positive, they're all mine anyway. It's all like manifestations within me, and that's kind of what I got from that. And but there's a whole idea is like, what wasn't I ready for? I've still got some DMT. So what was I ready for? If I took more, if I do it again, will I be ready? Do I have to do something in between there to become ready? Or is it like what a lot of people kind of think of DMT is like, is that the next side? Is that next life or something like that? I don't know. So that kind of question's lingered a lot. It's stuck with me. So yeah, those were my two DMT experiences. And yeah, probably not my last, but I might give it another year before I do it again and see what happens. See what happens in the real world, and depending what state I'm in, mind state I'm in next year or maybe in a few months, might do the DMT again. But for now, I'm pretty happy with those experiences. But it's one of those. After I took the first trip, my friend who brought it for me, we were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm glad I've got the experience with the other psychedelics before doing DMT, because there's no way I could have fucking handled that, man. There is no way. Yeah, you can see why like atheists come back believing in God, stuff like that. You can see why people completely, people take a DMT trip and then sell everything they own and like go live in the woods or something. You can see why that happens. But the beauty of the DMT, it's not long. It doesn't last long. It's just like getting hit by a psychedelic train. You just stood there and it's just like you just get smashed by something, and it's crazy how quick it is as well for how intense it is, how absolutely intense it is. But then there's the whole idea that I kind of mentioned that, and what's his name, Terence McKenna also says it as well, and it only makes sense. It makes sense when Terence McKenna says it, but it makes more sense once you've tried it. He says something like it doesn't interfere with your mental or psychological integrity. I don't think he said, that's a paraphrase, but that's true because, like I mentioned before, it's like you're still you. With the mushrooms and stuff, your brain kind of changes in such a way that it's like you could be someone else. Yeah, I've had mushroom experiences when I think I'm someone else completely or something else. I'm not, I'm still aware of somewhat, you know, my kind of judgment is there. When I've taken the DMT, it's hard to describe, but it's definitely something you could only truly understand if you take it, I believe. And also, you can never see the colors. No one can describe those colors to you unless you've done it yourself. But yeah, if you look at the work of Alex Gray, Bardo entity or something like that. When I first saw that image, it was fairly recent actually. I could hear the DMT sound just looking at it.
How has that experience affected you up until now?
It's had quite yeah, it's definitely had a profound experience. The whole feeling of that feminine energy, that feeling that I had, that's given me some kind of insight, or it's given me this idea that I kind of know it anyway, and everybody I believe knows it in a subconscious way. But what it's done, it's brought this idea to the forefront that when you're around different people, or whatever, when you're around whoever, whatever, they can generate feelings, or you feel things for them. You either dislike them, or you like them, or you really like them, or whatever feelings that you get around different people. And that whole idea, what that feminine energy showed me, that ball of light, it was the whole idea that the feelings are actually generated by me, and it's not the other person, or something like that. um and it's kind of like identifying that. It's made me kind of look at that a bit closer, because obviously, as I mentioned, there was some stuff that happened before with another person. I was in a kind of state where I was feeling like, oh, something's ended, and I didn't really want it to end, and stuff like that. And it's like the things that you felt for this person, those feelings were your own anyway, and they're always with you. And there's that kind of feeling, and that's it's kind of put something into it's brought something to the forefront, which I've already always kind of known. I guess that's how it's affected me there. There's also that whole idea of what wasn't I ready for. That was more of the kind of like intrepid kind of, I want to do it again because it seems like the story hasn't been completed or something like that. I've got to do it again because I haven't got the message yet. I've got to for the next few months before I take the DMT again. I've got to work on something to be ready for it. And maybe those two things are linked. That whole idea of being those emotions, and regulating them, and understanding how they're triggered and where they come from. Maybe that's part of becoming ready. Maybe that's why I wasn't ready, because I hadn't quite grasped this idea. But it's basically, you'll hear it's a really kind of cliche thing that psychologists or whatever say. They'll say something like, you should be responsible for your own happiness, and you shouldn't put that on other people. And everyone knows that. Everyone kind of knows you are responsible for your own happiness and your own whatever. But it kind of like brought it more home. It solidified that idea, where it is these feelings and emotions or whatever, they're within me anyway. I generate them. Other people don't generate them in me. I generate them for people, kind of thing. Um, and when it's reciprocated on both sides, it's like a beautiful thing, and it makes life seem better. But the truth is, life can be better without, as well, without sharing it with someone else or whatever. And yeah, I guess that's the kind of idea that it gave me. That's the kind of concept that came up. It's just that idea of your pure self, and kind of like, what is your pure self? Is it your physical body? It's definitely not. Everyone would say, most people would say anyway, it's not the things you own because they're all material. But is it even your physical body? Is it something more? You know, an idea of like a soul or something like that, and what does that soul look like? I guess it's kind of like a spiritual kind of thing. But
This is actually something I like to think about a lot. It's the concept of like what is defined as you. Um,
yeah, how much is it with you?
what is me and what is you in terms of like how we see it in society, but like in a subjective way, what do you define as yourself?
Yeah, it's a beautiful concept, and it's stuff that's in ancient religions or whatever thing, and spiritual practices. It comes up in Buddhism and stuff. There's the whole idea of duality and non-duality. In non-duality, that's kind of like we're all one anyway. So we're all sharing this consciousness anyway. And like, and you even get this, these are the kind of ideas that all psychedelics kind of break down. There's no difference between one person and another person. We're actually just one. It really breaks down those barriers, those kind of like individual kind of ideas that society forces upon us. And we're kind of taught it from a young age. As when we're young, that's kind of like enforced in school. Your individuality, you're a different person, you're this. But when you take psychedelics and you get into these kind of mind states, it really kind of breaks that down. It's like it's the kind of idea we are one, really. We shouldn't be forced to be individual. it is a beautiful idea. And there's the whole idea that when you take DMT, you're actually tapping into your DNA knowledge. That's what's pushed to the front. But I don't know about that, but I like that idea as well.
When this entity told you that you weren't ready, I know you talked like how you think it might be connected to what you've been saying. Why don't you think you weren't ready?
There is the other. I mean, there's been a few ideas that I've had. So it's possible that I wasn't ready to go any further because any further was death, basically. It wasn't my time to go that far. Perhaps this entity, I'm going to go completely like abstract here. It's possible. I mean, it's not that I believe this, it's not specifically, but it's a concept, it's an idea that I've been since the experience that I've like, thought about, and amongst various other ideas that the entity is somehow still part of me, and or like some sort of overwatching spirit guide or angel or whatever, and it's kind of like been with me all my life, or whatever. And if I was to go any further, what I wasn't ready for was like true death, like the great death, basically. Because obviously I've read stuff about like that DMT book, the Spirit Molecule. I've read stuff where it's like they're comparing DMT experiences to near death experiences, and stuff like that. So that's obviously on my mind. Is it possible, if I was able to get behind the sky, that the entity came out of, would that be the next life? Would that be death? Would that be, joining the pure consciousness of energy in the universe? That's possible. That's a possibility for me. That I've kind of taken. I've wanted to take a more moralistic view on it, because perhaps there's, I've read into it. But yeah, that's another possibility, that yeah, I was really close to going to the other side. And perhaps I'll see the other side next time. I don't know. But yeah, seeing all those lives instantaneously in front of me, and then living them in those split seconds, that was really intense. But yeah, I believe that's perhaps what I wasn't ready for. It's not only that it said I wasn't ready, it was also that it said all these things that I'm showing you aren't you, and this is the real you. That's kind of like, those are the three parts of the puzzle there. It's like these memories of these lives or whatever, or your life, they're not really you. And when all these lives are over, you remain to be this thing, and that thing isn't ready to come with me just yet. So that's a huge possibility, which I kind of like as well. I like that.
Do you know what tuning forks are?
Yeah, we use them to tune instruments.
I like to think about humans as tuning forks.
Yeah, I think it's Terence McKenna that says that we're like just antennas, that we're beaming information. Yeah, I think it's Terence McKenna that says something like, he doesn't use the word tuning fork, but he says we're like antennas and we're getting information. It might be Dennis McKenna, but it's definitely one of them.
I like thinking about tuning forks specifically because they have. Do you know what a resonance frequency is?
Yeah, it's like a sound frequency, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a type of frequency like a lot of different objects have resonance frequencies. Like a tuning fork has a resonance frequency, and another tuning fork with the same resonance frequency. Let's say if they're right next to each other, they don't have to be touching, but you can ding one, and because the other tuning fork has the same resonance frequency, the same vibration will start to come from the other tuning fork, even though that they're not touching in any way. Just the vibrations coming from one to the other will bring out that those vibrations from the other one. And I like to think that humans are like the same way in regards to like there's certain emotions or feelings or thoughts or whatever that everyone has latent within each other, and we bring those to the forefront within each other. We can resonate with each other.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, yeah. The way you've described it is amazing. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Yes.
I don't know where I got that from.
Yeah.
I just remember I've been thinking that for a while now. It might have been some video I saw like a long time ago. I'm not too sure, but I definitely like thinking about that a lot. I like to see things that way, that perspective.
That's a good way to look at it, and more people should think about stuff like that, especially when you think about how the world's become really fragmented, and if more people had that worldview, they would perhaps be a better place. We're all just here to resonate with each other.